I am Josh.
And I'm Sam. Welcome to Star Wars Deep Digging, the latest episode.
And then after that, they had no choice but to go off-world, to run and keep running until there came a day when they would have a place to call home that wasn't a dark, rented room or a freighter ship. It's the fastest ship in the galaxy, Bria pleaded with her sister. That's what Han says, and everyone's too scared to challenge him. Besides, Jabba's reward could buy a dozen fast ships. They looked down at the same time, as if they were sharing the same thought, the rancor devouring the Wookiee at Jabba's palace. It wasn't the first time they'd seen the creature in action, but every time they hoped it would be the last. Bria wondered if she could really leave Solo to that fate. She steeled her heart because taking care of Cindy would always come first. Cindy sighed and said, I don't know, Solo would probably rather take his chances with the entire Empire than give up his ship. He's a rat roach. I'm pretty sure, rat roaches are definitely a reference to something, but even I just can't keep track of all of the little details. Bria said, and chuckled. I know he's somewhere on this dirtball trying to find a new soul to swindle, but we've got to act now, son. We have to beat Jabba's men to the ship. The place is crawling with stormtroopers. If it goes south, there is no way I'm taking work from the Empire. Not after what they've done to our kind. You're a hunter, Sunny reminded her. You don't get to choose where your job comes from. If this is our last job, then yes, we can choose. So they chose. Bria cut a path through the tightly backed dark aisles of the tavern and settled at the bar. Wooher, the bartender, barely looked in their direction before he pulled on a draft handle and set two tall glasses in front of them. Not one for pleasantries, he grumbled his hello and stalked off to take another order. There he is, Sunny whispered into her sister's ear. A couple of regulars cozied up beside them, already in their cups, tapping their feet to the jumping rhythm of the band. Sunny smiled and delighted two locals with stories of a job they had worked in the Canto Bight Casino. Oh, wow, a Last Jedi reference. I was not expecting one of those. Meanwhile, Bria watched the crowd. A man in a brown robe walked in and struck up a conversation with the pilots. Beside her, Sunny laughed and was her usual charming self. I tell you, I can't get anything done with those helmet heads parading about, one of the locals told Bria, his thick bottom lip drooping. Never seen anything like it, another one said. That piqued Sunny's interest, and she joined the conversation. From farmers to merchants, no one on Tatooine was pleased with the recent arrival of stormtroopers. What are they after? She asked. Droids, sounds like, the man said. I've got a mess of them piled up in my shed if they want droids. Bria glanced at her sister and shared a frown for a moment before recommencing her careful scan of the cantina. She noticed a young farmer walk in. His hair was the shade of beaten gold, and even in the dark of the room she could see how bright his eyes were. There was an innocence about him as he asked his droids to wait outside, then walked up to the bar beside the old man in the brown robe. In hindsight, the Empire should have put out, I guess.
Descriptions?
In hindsight, I guess they really had no idea what the droids they were looking for even looked like. Needle in a haystack and all that. Bria liked him for some inexplicable reason. He had the kind of innocence she and Senny never could. Then Bria grabbed her sister's arm. Docking Bay 94. Something strange is happening, Sunny told her twin as they raced through the crowded Mos Eisley streets. Each sandstone building looked exactly like the next. Every person wore... it's called a planned community. Every person wore a cloak to protect themselves from the sand and the dust. It was the perfect port to get lost in, if one truly wanted to. Something strange is always happening. Bria said. First, there's so much heat on this speck of rock. It's a desert, of course there's heat. You know what I mean. I think something terrible is going to happen. Bria sidestepped a kid racing on his hoverbike. She would have yelled at him if she didn't have somewhere to be. Listen to me, she said to Sunny. Terrible things will always happen. They happened on Kifex, and they happened on Naboo, and they happened on Tatooine.
They happen everywhere.
Well, okay, maybe not everywhere. Stew John. You can't think of anything bad that's happened on Stew John, right?
No.
Right. There are some planets that are just so utterly in the middle of nowhere that nothing bad ever happens there. Naboo is not one of those places. Naboo is very, very important. Hmm. There will always be a war, and there will always be someone who wants us locked up. But the only thing we can do is survive, Sim. Survive until they won't let us. They got to Docking Bay 94, and there she was, the Millennium Falcon. Dirty and in need of a shine, but the Tonica sisters knew exactly how she could go. Fast she could go. In that moment, they had the same memory of seemingly endless nights aboard the most magnificent hunk of junk in the galaxy. But that was the past. Memories. Do you remember how to work the control panels? Then he asked Bria. Bria shrugged, but a quirk in her lip betrayed her thoughts. Lando taught me a thing or two. They took a step toward the Falcon, but a familiar laugh stopped them cold. Jabba. Bria yanked her sister to the side and hid around a stack of crates. Blast, Senny hissed. How many? Bria asked. Senny shook her head. She propped herself up and stole a glance from over the top of the crates. There were Jabba and a handful of bounty hunters guarding the Falcon like a pack of womp rats. There were too many of them, all concentrated around the entrance to the ship. There was no way they could get on board now. Stealing the Falcon while there was a price on Solo's head would be like stealing from Jabba himself. But it would have been worth it. Bria cursed herself for not acting faster, for letting her hesitation drag her down. They were too late. Why send hunters out for Solo if he knew where he was the whole time? Bria wondered. I told you, something strange is happening. We have to get off-world. Or Jabba's just trying to be thorough. He has a tendency to do that. Our ride is a little off-limits, Bria hissed. We'll find another way. We always do. Bria thought back to the time they'd stowed away on a ship belonging to the Onaka gang. Oh. I'd love to hear that story. Or the time they were stranded in wild space, or that time they trashed their room on Coruscant just to get back at Lando. Seriously, whoever wrote this short story really wanted to do the Tonica sisters, Lando and Han story. They just keep dropping hints. Senny was right. They always found another way. Bria smiled at her sister and waited for the coast to clear. As soon as Jabba and his men weren't looking in their direction, they stepped back out the door and onto the crowded street. Bria and Senny Tonica needed to regroup, find another way to break free. It seemed as if that life they wanted was as distant as the outermost ring of the galaxy. But for now, as they ducked into a nearby alleyway, they had each other. You owe me a ride, Senny told her sister after a long silence. Bria wanted to say that she owed her more than that. They waited to see Jabba's next move, but a scuffle broke out on the streets. Bria lifted her hood back up to see what the commotion was about. She came close to the wall and saw a group of stormtroopers march by with rifles at the ready. Their presence ignited a wave of chatter among the street dwellers and locals, who watched them run into Docking Bay 94. In the flurry of the moment, dozens of bodies were clamoring to see the stormtroopers in action. Their distraction brought a spark to Bria's eyes. The docking bays nearby were left unmanned. Any ship in Jabba's position would sell handsomely. And if this was their last score, they were going out in style. What is it? Senny whispered into her sister's ear, craning her neck like so many others. We're getting off this rock. Bria smirked as she grabbed her sister's hand and led her back into the streets, knowing quite well they couldn't stop running until they were surrounded by the stars. The Secrets of Long Snoot by Delilah S. Dawson. Do you know what your problem is, Long Snoot? The human elbows me as if unsure he has my attention, and I allow it. What's that? I say. His language is difficult for me to speak and elegantly force through two sets of teeth and out of my sensitive snout, an organ that can express 1,000 emotions in my own language with a mere twitch. No, it can't. Stop bragging. You're a stuck-up spy, immoral and arrogant at the same time. See, you can be one or the other, but you can't be both. He swigs the acid he considers a beverage. The fumes make my snout wrinkle. Think you're better than us? Pretend you're not rich. Sit around the cantina like you fit in, but you're just another alien sticking your ugly mug where it don't belong. My snout wrinkles. In elegant poem he can't read. I will take that into consideration. The human snorts and stands. Sheesh, don't even know when you're being insulted. Not even smart enough to take offense. He wobbles off to another table filled with raucous humans. They're laughing at me now, and the strange creature with the long snoot who hides behind robes and goggles. Their species grates on my nerves. Noisy, rude, unsubtle, uneducated, especially in the rougher corners of a planet like Tatooine. Wow, is everyone prejudiced?
Oh yeah, I also remember this time when a bird disguised himself as a Kubaz using a rubber Kubaz costume. That was in Jedi Battlestar Healers.
Fascinating. Their sweat stinks of fear and desperation. They're as trapped here as I am, although they tell themselves they chose this life. Know what your problem is? I say in my own language, quietly to myself. Your problem is that your entire species thinks itself a sun around which the petty planets and moons spin, but really you're just another rock, doomed to ever orbit something grander but remain ignorant of your own insignificance. I mean, that description applies to a lot of species. Just saying. He wouldn't understand that even if I said it in his language. Soon he'll discover that his leather bag of credits is gone. That at least is a language he understands. He was wrong about the rich part, you see. When I first came here, they called me Long Snoot. No one asked me my name or species, which I at first considered the height of discourtesy. Soon I learned it was protective measure among thieves and felons, all hiding out here on a planet that's not worth searching. Did I tell them my name is Garindin Ezavor? And that I come from a respectable hive on Cubindi? Okay, so now here we're going to get into a lot of legend stuff, mostly from the old role-playing game source books. But all of it is pretty much completely accurate, down to the name of his home planet. But interestingly, Garindin did not have... He was just Garindin. He was never Ezavor until this short story. Or that my clan is known for breeding and farming a sought-after strain of succulent picolet beetle.
This is the first time we get his last name.
Yep. Also, I'm pretty, we've never seen picolet beetles. Did I tell them my children are well-known senators, orators, and artists, that my grandchildren fill the creches and academies to bring future glory to our hive? Well, he's a grandpa. You can tell from the way he moves around, especially in that one Lego Star Wars level. Get back here, Imperial spy. No, I did not. For one, because no one asked. For another, because their petty thoughts don't matter. They are merely scavengers run to ground by a bigger predator. Fate chased us all here, but it won't keep me here much longer. I looked down at my datapad checking my accounts. Yesterday I was wealthy by any standard. Then a rogue spy offered me a garbled comm message from Cubinti. I haven't heard my own language in years, and I was more than willing to pay the substantial amount she demanded. Okay, I'm gonna stop wondering what the unnamed characters are, but I'm really curious about this rogue spy. Father, come home, my daughter said, her pain thrumming in every tone. Mother is dead and the family is in trouble. The message cut off. The stranger disappeared. My account dipped to nearly nothing. I didn't care. After that, my entire focus changed. Before, I was quietly building my account to return home with riches at a time of my leisure. Then I could begin the process of freeing Cubindi from the control of the lying empire. Oh yeah. Cubindi getting screwed over by... criffed over by the Empire, actually originates from Black Fleet Crisis of all things. You'd think it'd be another role-playing game source book, but nope. Now I have about 3 standard days to scrape together enough intel and creds to get me off this planet and back home, where I must bury my mate with full honors and regain control of my clan. But my network is large. Oh yeah, very large. And I've already arranged for an informant to supply the codes I need to get home. The time is nigh, so I adjust my hoods and goggles and slip out of the cantina, and leaving a half a credit out for the bartender. Woo her, one of the least offensive humans I know. You know, the interesting thing is, this Garindin is actually a lot nicer than the one, well, we'll get to with tales from the Mos Eisely Cantina. It's a pleasure to be outside, free from the stench of drunken, poorly washed fools. The light on this planet would blind me if I took off my goggles. But the sight of the night air is pleasurable. The sand scours the wind clean, and I always curl my snout with joy at the clear mineral freshness of it. Moments later, I'll adjust, and the odor of dewbacks and rontos will hit me big and warm, plus the smaller notes of fussy, usty Jawas and the oily clank of metal. It's like a symphony the way the scents flow anew with each breeze, but it only makes me long all the more for Kubindi, for the odors that speak of home. I haven't tasted dainty Neville pate or robust beach legs in ages. The only thing sweeter will be rubbing snouts of my grandchildren, and meeting the new grandchildren, of which I'm sure there will be many. I snatch a night moth from the air and try to swallow it before the vile taste hits me. Me reduced to eating moths. You know, moths don't come up often, especially not on Tatooine.
Yeah.
I just think that's an important thing to remember. Sorry, people at home. I know that as the episodes have gone on, we're reaching more and more. There's only so many fun little details left to explain. The air grows stale as I hurry through alleys and under billowing fabric tents. The humans narrow their eyes at me, their flesh radiating the scent of distrust and anxiety. They see me as a monster from their nightmares, a hideous, dishonest creature that lives to swindle and degrade them. Oh, that is basically what he was in Legends. That is basically what a lot of his people were in Legends. If only they could understand that I see them exactly the same way, but with the added bonus of slavery and oppression. I am only here because their people brought me here and abandoned me. They are here by choice. Nance, do you think he's gonna hook up with the Diversity Alliance later? He seems like their kind of guy.
Oh, yeah.
I reach the meeting place first and put my back against the rough clay dwelling. Sending my senses out into the night, I smell thieves, counting creds, murderers with blood still on their hands, forcers with smoking blasters, females drenched in hopelessness, starving children, and a different species sleeping fretfully behind our doors. This is normal in the slums of a place like Tatooine. All the honorable life happens farther out, on respectable moisture farms. Things I never smell here include the tang of fresh oil paints, the reskin flaking off an instrument's plucked strings, the nutty zing of ink, or the powdery cosmetics painted on actors waiting behind dusty curtains. Of all the places for a cultured Kubas to end up, it's ironic that it's on a planet bereft of arts, decorum, and education. Not that it matters. I'll be gone soon. I smell my informant before I see him. He's human, because of course he is. Nervous, sweating, his flesh still redolent of the armor he's worn all day while tromping around, cajoling and intimidating, eating and killing his own kind on an order he doesn't fully understand and never questions. I was never that naive. It's the nature of my species to question. It just so happens that I didn't question the right things, and that's how I came to be here. Ooh, Stormtrooper. He's jumpy and he's still wearing a blaster. The less I speak, the more comfortable he will feel, so I simply hold out the worn purse of dewback leather I snatched from my unkind neighbor in the cantina, jingling it slowly in my glove. You know, interestingly enough, you can actually make leather out of lizards. Like alligators? Yep, you can turn them into purses. Or shoes. It's weird. That noise propels him forward. Turn it out so I can see, he whispers. It's a foolish demand. There are too many credits here, more than I can hold in my hands, but I pour out enough to satisfy him. Even through the goggles, I can see his bulbous eyes gleaming. Just as I want something, so does he. We are both willing to do underhanded things to make it happen. I wonder what purpose this money will serve. Perhaps a crime boss has stolen the dancing girl he thinks he loves. Or maybe his child is sitting in irons in the markets. Okay, maybe he too just wants to escape the lies of the Empire. Okay, do you think this guy is a stormtrooper? Because if so, how the heck does he have a kid that ended up in slavery? Or, like, I can understand the dancing girl thing, but Corinda's imagination is weird. It doesn't matter. I tuck the coins back into the bag and he snatches it without touching my glove and hands me a slip of paper with several codes scribbled in basic. These will get me past the blockade? I asked. He jerks back when he hears my voice. I've been told it reminds humans of the line of insects, which makes sense as I am descended from insects. They never question that I have gone to the trouble to learn their entire language, while not a single one has bothered to learn my name. If I told him his voice reminds me of the hooting complaints of a Koakian monkey lizard, he'd probably shoot me where I stand. Not entirely wrong. The codes are good, at least for a few days. It would be best if you were on a ship with no guns, some sort of trader, nothing the rebels would fly. When he says the word rebels, he spits in the sand, and I can smell his moisture soaking up the dust. So this one, he still thinks his people are the good guys. Your friend is about to get jumped, I observe, and he pulls his hood down and spins. A soft thump and cry around the corner sends him running toward the compatriot who watched his back during our exchange. My work is done, and I melt into the night. The scent of their blood follows me. Even for villains, this place is dangerous. I live here, but I would not call this place a home. My people build beautifully complex hives, each person curling in their own tight cell at night, to dream the dreams of grubs. My hovel on Tatooine feels both too small to be a home and too big to be a sleeping cell. Someone stored beast here once, but I prefer their lingering odor to that of humans and the other sapient creatures who surround me. Beasts have honest interest, most of them pertaining to the physical drives dictated by their body chemistry. Their odors are predictable, harmless, dependable. But people emit thousands of pheromones in their secretions, their thoughts and feelings laid down like the whispered conversations that mar a concert. I don't think that fits the definition of the word pheromone. Like, isn't that something that's deliberately exists for the sake of sending messages? Like, smells would be a better word. I'm nitpicking, but once again, I really gotta reach for content sometimes. We both do. Tatooine is no place for a thinking being who relies on unspoken communication.
Actually, I'm just letting the content come to me.
Alright. I mean, I would do that too, but if we did that, we could go through, like, whole short stories without having anything to say.
That's just what I'm doing.
Okay, that's great. It's great that you're doing that. I'm just explaining to you why I'm not doing that. Especially when the communicators are aware of how they lie to themselves. It is unfortunate my business keeps me waiting for hours in cantinas, the air thick with lust and greed and fear. Perhaps this is why they hate me. Somewhere deep down, they know someone is listening. I lock my door as everyone else does. My blue light is calming, and I buzz.
Someone's listening? Well, breaking news, no one's listening.
Now I get it. I worry that when I return to Cubindi, my family and friends will focus on the unattractive ridges worn into my flesh by this disguise. Disguise? All Cubans dress like that. The lines of tight leather pressing around my snout and drawing circles around my eyes. My hair will stand up straight, but parts of me will feel as if they droop. Among the Cubans, little can be hidden, and I will be out of practice. My datapad pings, alerting me to a new bounty. I must be choosy. For all of my strengths, I have many weaknesses, and I only select jobs that keep them hidden.
That's a real Kubas, by the way, not a rubber costume.
Yep. No hand-to-hand combat, no kidnapping. Oh, come on. Hunting bounties is kidnapping. That's how it works. No killing, no guarding. I rarely use my blaster, but make a point of letting everyone see it. Information is my currency, and fortunately, that's exactly what what's currently desired. The Empire has placed a high bounty on any information leading into two droids. One is golden, one's squat. Tomorrow morning. Okay, so the Empire does know what they look like. Wonder how they found that out. Vader probably sensed it with the Force or something, I guess. Oh. Jawas. They probably figured it out from the Jawas.
Yeah.
And also Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru. Tomorrow morning I'll find them. My snout wiggles with glee. The high price on this last job will pay for my passage off the planet and back to Cubindi. It means that the very empire that lured me from my home with false promises, it is effectively paying to return me to the planet. My planet. In the Krace, our instructors taught us of our history of the Empire and the Rebellion. The Empire was our friend, but the rebels had long sabotaged our technological advances to keep us off planets. All of this comes from before the storm, by the way. If we helped them, the Empire promised to help us gain a foothold in galactic trade and politics. The cunning prodigal droids who spoke for the Empire on Cubindi were carefully bathed in hot oil before doddering down the ship's ramps to meet with our elders and proudly lead us into the belly of their grand vessel as our people buzzed to cheer. We could not detect their lies. I was one of the chosen students picked from the academy to study under the Empire as a diplomat and return to my mate in Hive with new accolades. At least, that's what they told us. Instead, I was indentured and trained as a spy. Mm. My ability to read body language, small pheromones and weapons, and hear from long distances was to become a mere tool in the hand of galaxy-wide tyranny. My 15 companions and I were put in manacles and forced to withstand propaganda, indoctrination, and reprogramming. Mine, as might be guessed, did not
Oh,
take.
wait, I remember. The Kubas were actually captured by the Separatists when their home planet was taken by the Separatists during the Clone Wars.
Ah, yeah, such a fascinating species. Mm. I slipped away on a job and attempted to return to Kubindi, only to find its orbit guarded by Imperial firepower. Since then, I've been working quietly and steadily to create my current reality. After this job, I will have enough credits to hire a ship. I now have Imperial codes to get past the blockade. I mean, you'd think they'd have changed those codes by the time he gets there, but I guess the Empire's lazy. And I have a datapad crammed with the most current information, diagrams, and manuals on advanced technology and hyperspace travel. When I return to Kubindi, my people will finally learn that the Empire holds them hostage, keeping them from a much wider universe and sabotaging their every effort to get off planets. I also have the intel necessary to build weapons that can shoot their buzzing TIE fighters out of the sky. Tomorrow I will find the droids, I will collect the bounty, and then I will leave. My day begins in Chalma's Cantina. Labria the Deveronian. Oh, he's going to be very important when we get to Tales from the Mos Eisely Cantina, which will be a while. Is already here, hiding his pointy smile and tapping his fingers to music no one else can hear. He's a big audiophile. I take my place in a shadowy booth and order the only thing I can, a single shot of fermented mead from Geonosis. Which is ironic because the Kubas eat Geonosians occasionally. It has taken me months to drink the whole bottle, but I tip Luher for keeping it around. There are only a few shots left, worms sloshing around at the bottom of the green liquid. I dip in my snout and take a dainty sip, tasting hundreds of other mouths on the dirty glass. I can hear almost everything said in this cantina, and by the afternoon I've heard nothing of the droids. I slurp up the worm at the bottom of my glass and leave, just another hooded figure disappearing through Luher's door. Outside, I do something I rarely do and take a full breath through my snout, drawing in every scent for blocks. Pain throbs behind my eyes. It's too much. This place is too crowded, too filthy, too full of flesh. I follow the scent of odd metal, but it's just another Jawa selling his wares. The next whiff of droid takes me to a pile of parts outside a mobster's apartment. I hurry from droid to droid, hunting for the gold one and the squat one. My hope begins to run out. Needle in a haystack. If they're in the desert, I will have trouble finding them. Even with my goggles, that much yellow light quickly leaves me drained and hurting. Then I smell it. Something new. An old speeder's exhaust, and with it the bright odor of droids left too long in the sun. They're not as close as I'd like, and by the time I get to the scent, they're gone, probably hiding in one of the myriad labyrinthine buildings. I stalk the area outside Luher's cantina and hear a fight with them. Pondabob and Evazan again, harassing outsiders. I hide in the shade as they lurch outside. Ponda's arm held in Evazan's hands like he's in the middle of one of his disgusting surgeries. The odor of charred flesh makes my snout wrinkle in revulsion, and foul red blood still drips from the wounds. I slip in the door once they're gone and lean against the wall, my hood pulled down. A strange scent rides the air, something I've never smelled before, like burning rock and cooked meat. Like lightning given life. I trace it to 3 humans and a Wookiee. It's that disreputable Han Solo. The new humans need passage to Alderaan for themselves and 2 droids. I almost laugh. Do these men even know what secrecy is? They're wanted. This town is being patrolled by stormtroopers, but they announce their intentions in plain sight. Well, I mean, it's not like the stormtroopers are much of a threat. Obi-Wan could take on a whole army of them single-handed. Probably. Maybe watching too many of those versus videos. It always tend to over-exaggerate how, like you've seen some of those, right?
Yeah.
But the droids aren't with them, so I hurry out of the bar and squat in a dark corner between the cantina and Han's junker ship. If their deal works out, and it will, because I know Han needs money and a reason to get off Tatooine, they will come this way. Referring to Han by his first name. Perhaps there's a history between the 2 of them. Soon I'm rewarded for my efforts. The men walk by with 2 droids, 1 golden and 1 squads, as they hurry to the Millennium Falcon. My snout crinkles with delight, and I find a quiet place to calm my contact within the Empire. Thanks to the prodigal droids that answer this channel, I'm able to speak in Kubazian, and it's a small delight to taste the words of home. Okay, so we know, once and for all, that their language is Kubazian, not Kubaz or Kubindi, or there are so many names for it. A mechanized voice answers, Roger, we'll credit account after collection. How I hate droids. My people communicate what they wish you to know, and humans communicate everything, but droids communicate nothing. Well, I mean, that depends on how they're programmed. And 3PO, for instance, cannot shut up. I follow my quarry to make sure they're headed in the direction I've reported. They linger outside the ramp instead of hurrying onto the ship. I lean nonchalantly against the wall as the troopers appear to claim the droids. Is this docking bay 94? One asked me. Yes, that way, I say. So we know oh, that does kind of sound like what he was saying in the movie. Even though in my excitement I've forgotten to speak basic, he understands well enough and hurries on. And now we have an explanation for why he wasn't doing that. As blaster fire erupts, I run away. The scent burns the hairs in my snouts, and the lights give me a headache. I am not made for this place. It is pleasant letting someone else do the dirty work. Back at the cantina, I order another drink at the bar. There's something fitting about finishing the bottle before I leave, as if giving myself concrete evidence that no Kubas remains on this drafted planet. 2 in a day? Wuher asked, but I know he's not expecting an answer. He moves on, and I take a sip and consider my datapad. Credit should appear at any time, and then I will look around this cantina and select the least terrible smuggler to escort me home. The bulk of my savings paid for my daughter's message, so collecting this bounty is imperative. The band is good, eh? Labria comments. Oh, man, getting Labria's character exactly right. This author really did her research. Labria comments, giving me the full benefit of his real smile, showing only his pointed teeth against his red skin. For once, I respond honestly. Functional, but lacking in higher tones, I say in basic. The Deveronian shakes his head, ears going up in annoyance. You know nothing, he grumbles. Little does he know, a band on Kubindi has at least 3 times as many players as this simple Bith grouping, and the intricacies of our music would soar over his horns. I was once an accomplished percussionist myself. More of... Yep. The arrogance is definitely there. Perhaps you are correct, I offer. I check my datapad, but still the credits aren't there. As I stare at the balance, a new message pings in. Droids avoided capture. Bounty not awarded, it says. And that's it. My snout deflates and sags with disappointment. I have a day or two, maybe mere hours, to secure enough credits to buy my way off this planet, while the Imperial codes are still good. I scroll through the boards, looking for some new or previously hidden bounty I could pick up. Some easy little job to drop just enough credits into my account. It is not lost on me that, back home on Kubindi, my clan is wealthy enough to buy this cantina and everyone in it. But my daughter's message cost everything I had, and they can't get off Kubindi, and I can't get a message to them. So I sit here, surrounded by dross, so close and yet so far from saying goodbye to my mates and seeing my grandchildren and children again. Bad news, long snoots? Labrie asked. I shake my head. If he understood me, if he could read a tiny fraction of what I'm expressing, he wouldn't have to ask. But he looks at me and sees a hood, goggles, and a long snoot. Nothing more, nothing less. There are no good bounties, no simple request for information. Nothing that can be accomplished with only my senses and my cleverness. I need a job, I say to Labria. Something quick, today. He looks at me with renewed interest, and I hear his teeth sliding in and out of places he thinks. Do you know Dorita, the cat? Now this one's is a real deep cut. Dorita only shows up in the role-playing game Sourcebook Alliance Intelligence Reports as one of the many enemies that the players can be sent after. Only member of the Ketan species. Canonically, he was taken down by Kyle Katarni, and of all characters, Max from the Sam & Max video games. Carrie, if you're watching this, tell Alex, I think is his name, about it. Oh, it's so embarrassing that I don't know everyone in groups' names. And if you're not Gary, please ignore everything I just said. I nod. She needs a number 2 for a job. Tonight. Oh, she. Doritos is shit. I always forget. Why don't you take it then? Labria barks a laugh and sips his golden drink, considering too much work. Why has no one else taken the job? He glances at the bar in an assumptive way, and I produce a half cred. I've watched him enough in my time here to know that nothing is free. It's against the Alliance. No one likes taking sides. He sneers as he looks around the room. The humans don't, I mean. One master is much the same as another. He would know. He's wrong. That very assumption is what landed me here, by people lured by the Empire into thinking that the Alliance was our enemy. Alone in space, we can only believe what we are told, how wrong we were. Yet even knowing that the Empire's enslaved my planet and tried to turn me into a brainless drone, I need those credits, and I need them more than I need righteousness. And here's the immoral part. And besides, from my understanding of intergalactic history, a small assassination on a backward planet never did change the world. From my knowledge of real-life history, that does not seem accurate. Tell her I'll do it, I say. Labria dashes off a message on his datapad. It's done. She'll send you coordinates. He sips his drink and considers me as if seeing me for the first time. You know, some say you're the greatest spy in Mos Eisley Spaceport. Some say you're wildly wealthy. Some say you're greedy, unprincipled, and dirty. That you do what you do for the pure joy of destroying so many well-laid plans. So tell me, Long Snoots, what are you really? I stare at the bar for a moment before realizing that he can't see my eyes through the goggles. Slowly, and with emphasis, I tap the bar with my finger. Labria chuckles and replaces my half-cred. I am very far from home, I say. Whisking away the half-cred, I hurry outside to prepare for my last bounty. Maybe it was his last, maybe it wasn't. Who can say? We'll probably never see him again, though we're definitely going to see plenty of other Cubas. One just showed up in Hunters recently. Born in the Storm by Daniel Jose Older, I think that's pronounced.
Is this before the storm or in the eye of the storm?
Well, I mean, the eye of the storm cannot form until after there's a storm, you know. That's kind of why it's called that. Stormtrooper Corps of the Imperial Army Division of the Imperial Military Galactic Empire Official Imperial Incident Report Form Instructions. Please fill out fully and completely. Details help. Sometimes seemingly small elements can change the whole story. As such, please don't leave anything out. Be thorough. Follow the instructions carefully and answer the questions asked in each section. Paint a picture. And remember, failure to comply with proper Imperial military authority can result in disciplinary action including docked pay, loss of equipment, expulsion, and or summary execution. Remember also that this is an official Imperial document, and any discrepancy between what you write and what actually occurred is an infraction of the Imperial Military Protocol. Thank you for your service. Name, Sardis Ramson. Operating number TD7556. X. Corps, Stormtrooper. Division, Sand Trooper. Unit, Foot Patrol 7. In Legends, they were called Albion Squadron. Commanding Officer, Commander TD110. He's going to be important later. Location of incident, Settlement Planet Region, Mos Eisely, Tatooine, Outer Rim. Were any other members of your detachment involved in this incident? Oh yes, very much so. Which ones? Be specific. Literally all of them. Were any officers involved or officers injured during this incident? One can only hope. Please list all officers injured during this incident. I'd really rather not, actually. Are you an officer? If no, skip the following question. Now, were you injured in this incident? Are all participants in the incident accounted for currently? Absolutely the Kriz not. Kriz? Seriously? What were the initial events that led up to the incident in question? Be specific. Right, well, I guess it starts in the Mos Eisley barracks then. Also another thing that did not exist in Legends. Like, the Empire never stuck around Mos Eisley to bother making a base there. We were sent in as a specific designated...
I actually heard of the Mos Eisley barracks in the mobile game Star Wars Commander.
Wait, were they actually referred to as the Mos Eisley barracks?
No.
Okay, maybe that's an unrelated Imperial base. I guess they have multiple. We are sent as a specific designated detachment regiment by Grand Moff Tarkin to this armpit of a planet in the literal butt of the galaxy to recover some missing droids. He's misusing the word literal. At least that's what I heard. They don't really tell us much, you know. Well, I guess you do know, don't you? Since they equals you, but I digress and whatnot. There we were, bunked up in just our underskivvies, which, by the way, well, since we're on the subject, you're all well and good when you're freezing your balls off on Faz or Renvar. Like, I don't recognize Faz. But, Sam, I think you know enough about Renvar to enlighten our audience as to its history.
Oh yeah. Basically, long time ago, something. Renvar didn't actually become important until the end of the Sith War when a former Sith Lord named Ulic Keldroma came to Renvar to live in exile. He died there. There was even a tomb dedicated to the former Jedi Ulic Keldroma.
Which you can actually visit in the first Battlefront game all the way back in 2004.
Oh yeah, there was also the Battle of Renvar during the tail end of the Great Galactic War, before the Treaty of Coruscant was signed.
And another battle during the Clone Wars. And I've definitely seen Faz somewhere before, but I'll have to look that up later. Or something, but in the double sun deserts of Tatooine serve only to bake you thoroughly to a crisp and lodge sand in the most unmemorable and unreachable places. So thanks for that. Also, the temp regulators in those helmets you gave us are an absolute sham, like not even remotely functional. So, you know, you might want to get on that or something. Anyway, there we were, shellanging about and waiting for run orders from 110.
Hey, the advertisements were right. Sand really does get everywhere.
Yep. Commander TD-4445 had moved into the city proper with his mounted squad, according to their melodramatic outburst on the comms. I really don't know what the Mounties are so fussy about. They have it made, if you ask me. While we futz around like holograms on the Jajaric board, these lucky moes get to roll nobly across the desert on dewbacks. And look, those animals, I can't explain it. There's something graceful about them. They just move like every particle of them is perfectly aligned and entirely free. They'll take you through a storm, over a river, into a building. They'll maul the criff out of anyone that gets in your way. They're basically a stormtrooper's best friend. Or you say anything else? Yes, I put into it in the Mounties, and no, I wasn't accepted. Now I don't know why, but I'm still pretty miffed. Anyway, I was actually sitting there pondering that, why I didn't get positioned in the Mounties instead of with this inept pile of foot patrol trash. And Tin Top was being a nuisance again, as I recall. We'd slipped TD-787, something that made him gassy, and TD-787 was about to wreck him again. By the way, none of these characters had the same designations that they did in Legends. When old Crag spoke up, and the whole of Unit 7 knows that when Crag has something to say, you listen. Even though, if we're being honest, 99% of what that relic spews is unadulterated bantha piss. But whatever, it breaks the monotony, I guess. Do you blokes know where we got our name from? Craig says, all mysterious-like. TD-787 has stopped mid-lurch, like absolutely about to choke the useless life out of Tin Top, but instead TD-787 turns and goes, because our helmets are shaped like buckets, I always figured. Everyone scoffed, because that would have actually been funny if he'd meant it as a joke, but TD-787 was born bereft of even the remotest sense of humor, so, well, it actually makes it even funnier that he was serious, honestly. Either way, we all had to go to a chuckle, except Craig, who scowled, the old clone's permanent expression augmented. You know, interestingly, I was looking. Apparently, the old card game basically identifies all the stormtroopers as clones, and all the stormtroopers in A New Hope as clones, and yeah, like I'm glad that that's being ignored because it just doesn't make sense. A few of them, yes. All of them, no, definitely not. And said, "Not that name, you cog. It's because we were born in the storm," Commander 110 said from the doorway. And then, because 110 always gotta say everything twice, the second time wistfully, "Born in the storm." I can't lie, though. He looked impressive standing there in his full body armor, helmet off, backlit by the twin Tatooine suns, his shadow thrown long across the barracks floor. "Hey," Craig said. "The storm of history. As the galaxy transitioned from chaos to order, our regiment was created to maintain that order."
Born in the storm. More like born before the storm, and that seems like a whole big shield of lies.
Okay, that's a good one. That's one version anyway, Commander 110 said. Even backlit, I could tell he was smiling some. Could hear it in his voice. He was having one of those patriotic sway type moments when the whole galactic empire seemed to sparkle in his eyes, and whatever ridiculous mission was ahead appeared infinitely manageable, all part of the grand design. You can see exotic worlds across the galaxy in the Empire. Empire.
That's why I joined the Sith Empire in Star Wars The Old Republic.
Yeah. Maybe we'll go back there someday. And that's all well and good, but there was sand in my butt crack and the day wasn't getting any cooler, so quite frankly, I wish he'd hurried up and get to the point. Which he then did. Run orders, boys. Everyone groaned. One Ted ignored us, wisely. We're moving into Mos Eisely proper. The barracks on the outskirts of town. Apparently to discourage too much fraternizing with the locals, but like fat chance, if you know what I mean. Also outside of the town equals closer to the endless barren infinity of a wasteland festering of sand people, banthas, and a million other ways to die. Also sand. All the sands. All the sand ever. Oh yeah, you can actually fight Tusken Raiders as stormtroopers in the original Battlefront, speaking of that. So, Mos Eisley proper didn't seem like so terrible a thing by comparison. If those droids had been wandering around the deep desert, they wouldn't have made it back to base in one piece. Let's just put it that way. Bad enough you run off to some stinking bantha hole planet with secret plans or whatever on board. Don't add insult to injury by making me deal with even more sands, you know? And anyway, the dewbacks were there, and maybe, well, a stormtrooper can dream. So we geared up, put on our inefficient, terribly archaic, and altogether butt-scratchingly uncomfortable armor, put on our absolute garbage dump helmets, and don't let us see a dang thing, and loaded up those E11s you've given us. Those are great in the video games, which require one to aim as far as possible away from what one's shooting at in order to have half a chance of hitting it. So thanks for all that.
Han actually commented on stormtroopers in the Imperial Handbook. First he said, the tighter the helmet, the dumber the trooper. Then he talked about E11s and said, I know drunken drawls that shoot better than E11s.
You back up active any further, where are you planning on shooting him from? The triffing Death Star? You backed him any further, you'd have had to mail him the blaster bolts. What actions did you take based on the initial events leading up to the incident in question? Nothing, we just sat there. Like, really, my dear interrogative application system, what kind of criffing question is that? 110 gave us the order to move, so we moved. If we didn't, we'd be summarily executed, remember? Our long-distance choke smash by your beloved arch-wizard Woo-Woo-in-Chief. Well, I mean, stormtroopers do have a direct line to Vader and can call him up at any time during these events, so hard pass on that option, thanks. So we geared up, rolled out, and there we were in the heart of Mos Eisley, getting crispy beneath all those layers of armor and this giant black body sock, and quite frankly, craving a thirst quencher. And I don't mean the kind that actually quenches thirst. I mean the kind that dehydrates, in fact. A beverage, specifically one that frizzles, to be precise. Java juice, in case I wasn't clear. I wanted a damn drink. Hey, that's Artie's to you, sir. And look, we had no leads, basically, so what's one direction or another in that rotting scumrat basin? I think they may have headed for the cantina, I said, sounding authoritative and not leaving any room for debate. But of course, TD787 wouldn't be TD787 if he didn't play the contrarian at any given opportunity, so he chimes in with, what makes you think that, Sar? And I was about to snap back at him when Commander 110, I guess, holds up one hand, all serious-like. Look, I don't know if you've ever been to Mos Eisley, but it's crammed with about 8 million hard-up, squirming, slimy, writhing, multi-limbed, sometimes tentacled, seething, heaving, bleeding, literally, frothing to mentally useless waste of skin and bone, and sometimes gear and data. Wow, quite the misanthrope. Also, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, 8 million. Definitely hyperbole. I don't think there are 8 million individuals on the whole of Tatooine. Yes, it's a spaceport, but if you're looking for the dead end of the galaxy and its denizens, look no farther. So there are plenty of suspicious-looking droids. They hobble past, zip along on their rusty little wheels, stumble by through the sand-crusted streets. Means they wait outside of junk shops and currency exchanges, bleeping and burping, being their little self-righteous selves. I don't like droids, in case you weren't sure. They annoy me. Anyway, that's what made it remarkable that Commander Commander 110 seemed to have such a strong feeling about this speeder coming our way with two droids, an old guy, and a kid driving. They were unremarkable to me in every way, really, but 110 gets his feelings about stuff and runs with it, and he's the one with the orange pauldron, not me, so whatever he says, I guess. We surround the speeder looking all heavy and serious, even though we're the ones with the blasters. However useless, they still would have made quick work of the kid and is obviously somewhat off the deep end grandpa. Why does everyone keep thinking that Obi-Wan is such a pushover? I mean, I know it makes sense in context, but I really want to see him fight sand troopers just to prove them wrong. We surround the speeder looking all heavy and serious, even though we're the ones with the wait. 110 asked how long they've had the droids, and they say something. I wasn't really paying attention, to be honest, because we weren't that far from the cantina, and I figured if we could wrap this up quick and head over there, I could be slurping Jawa juice within the hour. Blam! But old 110 has other plans, of course, because the Rebel Alliance is really going to rely on an ancient freak and a teenager who needs a haircut to ferry their top-secret cargo around. Okay, to anyone not already in the know, look up the definition of dramatic irony. It'll be very helpful going forward. The esteemed Commander 110 demands their IDs. If you could see through these stupid buckets we wear, you would have seen my eyes roll so hard. Our eyes probably, except T-787 because annoying. Then the old guy's like, you don't need to see his identification. And the first thing I thought was, wow, is this geezer an Imperial? He just had that way about him, like he was one of us somehow, but busted and goofy and strung out. Maybe it was the accents. Little bit of joke about how Obi-Wan has an English accent, and so do all the members of the Empire. That thought really didn't last long, though. Because the next thing that happened was that I was absolutely 100% sure that we did not need to see his identification. I mean, to be fair, it didn't seem that necessary in the first place, but listen. You would have had to hold me down and shove his scan docs in my face. Probably take my helmet off if you really wanted me to see anything, if you wanted me to look at him. It was imperative that I not see them right at that moment. In fact, all I wanted was to get the Kriz out of there, and not just to get sizzled on some Jawa juice either. You don't want to stand guard. You want to go out drinking. Seems Commander 110 finally came to his senses too, because then he says, we don't need to see his identification. Bless, I almost yelled, but I kept it contained. These are not the droids you're looking for, old guy says. And he was right, he was so right. It was like, of course they're not. 110 agreed, and then old guy says that he can go about his business, and I'm like, yes, old guy, say that. And 110 agrees again, word for word, in fact. Move along, this remarkable little geezer said. Commander 110 nods. Move along, and then because he's 110 and can't help himself, he repeats it for good measure. Sure. The power of laziness wins again. What further actions did you take following the initial events surrounding the incident in question? Well, we went and got sizzled up on some Jawa juice, my guy. What do you think? At that point, we were already fed up. Of course, we finally get to the canteen, and there they are. No, not the droids we're looking for. Dewbacks. Two beautiful, shining dewbacks. Females, I think. Just standing there, breathing in and out and reflecting on their dewback lives, taking in the sun. And the suns. At that moment, to be honest, I didn't care about the droids or the Galactic Empire or even the Jawa juice. I just wanted to go up and lay my hand on the snout, close my eyes, and just be still, you know. Insert Jurassic Park reference here. But the dewbacks being there also meant TD-4445 guys were around somewhere, so we had to go in and see what we could, unless another unit get the drop on us and deliver the droids instead. Look lively, boys, Commander 110 said, and Craig just chuckled. There we go, in that ruthless dinge pods. And we go in that ruthless dinge pods and are instantly surrounded by various forms of star scum and asteroid excrement. The never-ending stench of cheap milk and bodies that have been crammed into spaceships with no showers for far too long. First thing I see is an Ithorian, and he's looking jumpy, to be honest. I'm not even trying to smash heads like that, but the Ithorian seems downright shook when we walk in. I send him a skull, which of course he can't see, but it doesn't matter. He'll be moving along soon enough anyway. Okay, our only moment Nadan cameo. Do you think the events of his story happened in canon too? I'd like to think they did. Yeah. I send him a skull, which of course he can't see, but it doesn't matter. He'll be moving along soon enough anyway. The whole joint seems to tinkle with the murmur of some mess that must have just gone down. One of those little eager-faced freaks with the beady eyes is mopping someone's butt off the floor. Or, and I hear whispers and grunts about a lightsaber. A lightsaber! I'm tired, man. I'm just tired. The the bartender points TD9787 and 110 toward a corner table where some cats involved in the mess were supposed to have been, and I try to take the opportunity to signal that I want a drink. The bartender's surly scrug. The bartender's surly scrug, though. He just scoffs and looks away. And then I notice Tin Top has actually managed to get one. The damn fool's lifting up his bucket to steal a few sips. I'm about to curse him out when I hear a polite little ahem from the seat next to me. There's a towel sitting there, one of those little gray hairy things that looks like an Ewok that got punched in the face. Okay, how does he know what an Ewok is? They're not exactly commonplace.
Well, the Empire did take over Endor in that one short story.
Well, yeah, but that hasn't happened yet. We'll just chalk it up to a continuity error and move on. It's sitting at the bar next to me, scratching its itty little proboscis and looking, I think, at me. Then it burbles something. I can't be bothered with languages. I don't know, so I just... Well, very American of you. So I just shake my head, and then the bartender, speaking of faces that have been punched too many times, goes, he says the droids you're looking for are headed into the desert with some sand people. Good old Muff Tack. Then, as if to seal the deal, he puts a drink down in front of me. I glance over at Tin Top, who's just guzzling at this point, and then across the room to where 110 Craig and TD787 are hassling the band. I shrug. Then I look at the drink and the waiting towels with its beady little eyes. Information recon, right? Right. Does he know how long ago they left? I ask as I lift up the old Met and take a nice long chug. The gray guy squabbles some, and then the bartender says, they just went before you lot walked in, so they have a bantha with them. A bantha! Tin Top yells in a way that makes it clear he's well sizzled already. He gets a little too close to my ear and mutters, can we trust this little fuzzbugger? This cantina ain't exactly Imperial friendly, Ram. I shrug. At this point, I'm not sure Imperial friendly I am myself, if we're being honest. Which we are, apparently. I hate my unit. I hate my uniform. I hate that I can be hauled out to any old galactic wasteland on a moment's notice just to annihilate some random one-celled troglodyte. It's the constant feeling that the world may be very, very beautiful if only one could remove the crab-stained glasses that come with being a member of this ridiculous army. I wonder why I joined up in the first place. That would make an interesting story. But yeah, I can't believe I'm actually gonna...
Probably because his wife would not stop nagging him about Imperial loyalty and all that.
The old Lady Macbeth archetype. What is it with you and being a cupcake? Go join the army. Tin Top shrugs too, because whether he agrees with all my deep inner sentiments about the Empire or not, Tin Top generally just can't be bothered, especially when he's toe up on the juice. Craig and 110 came back around to let us know there was no one over there but some smug-looking tool and his Wookiee, and then the band information came up empty. We tell him the new info. Bugger, 110 says as we shove our way through the crowd and out of the cantina. Criff. Describe the incident in question. Be specific. Well, about that. Once we left the cantina, everything started happening fast. First of all, those dewbacks were still there, just grazing and smiling even, maybe. Can a dewback smile? I think so. They certainly seem to see us, nod a little. Immediately, TD4445 comes up on the comm to be all, we're pursuing a lead that some rebels have commissioned a ship and are trying to get off Tatooine of the droids. Our intel says they're desert bound with some Tusken Raiders, 110 says. Who's your source? Gurinden, comes the gargled response. Gurinden the Kubaz? 110 asked. Affirmative. He is following the suspects. Will advise. Look, I'm not bigoted or anything, but the Kubaz are a trash species. Period. Point blank. No exceptions. So, okay, a long snouted goggled armpit gave you some information. Are you going to believe it? I rather think not, frankly. I'm not, anyway. I say as much to 110. Regardless, TD787 boards out, being punchable as always. That's confirmed Imperial source. We have to follow up his lead first, right, Commander? Maybe it's the Jews, but I almost just jacked TD787 right then and there. I'm pretty sure I've been acting on behalf of the whole squad if I had. Not for nothing. I mean, those dewbacks were right there, and as far as we know, the rebels were getting away as we spoke, just vanishing into the never-ending sands of Tatooine. Commander 110 shakes his head, then nods, unhelpful as always. The Imperial lead, he mutters. We have confirmation, TD4445 suddenly garbles over the comm. The rebels are heading for the hangar. All units converge on Docking Bay 94. There's your answer, Commander 110 grunts. And then we're off before I even have time to object, tearing through the cluttered streets, pushing through a crowd of stinky Jawas. I know this is wrong. I can feel its wrongness all over my body. It's inescapable. But I'm a soldier, a stormtrooper. I'm the faceless enforcement fist of the Galactic Empire. What can I do about it? I shove along with my units, trying to ignore the deep-down ache that tugs on me like a tractor being back through the crowd to the front of the cantina where those dewbacks wait. Alright, I think that's enough for today. We will see you again eventually.